Let me tell you something. When people underestimate you, when they doubt you, that's when you surprise the world. India made a move and boom, America was shocked. This is not just politics. This is power, discipline, strategy, and vision. Just like in bodybuilding, in movies, in life, you gotta make the world say, I didn't see that coming. India did it. And today, I'm going to show you how and why this moment changes everything. When a nation wants to make an impact on the world stage, it cannot simply announce its arrival with words. Words are cheap, but strategy is power. India's unexpected move was not about shouting or making noise. It was about timing, calculation, and courage. Strategy is like a weapon. You do not wave it around carelessly. You sharpen it in silence, and you strike when the world least expects it. That is exactly what happened. The United States, a nation that prides itself on predicting global outcomes, did not anticipate this step. And when the unexpected arrives, the shockwave is louder than the move itself. The beauty of an unexpected strategy lies in preparation. Just as a bodybuilder spends years training in the gym, lifting in silence, suffering in pain, sweating without applause, a nation like India builds its strength in the shadows. The world only sees the results when the curtain is lifted. America was watching the surface, looking at the obvious indicators, the standard moves, the predictable paths. But India was playing a deeper game, calculating quietly, moving with patience, waiting for the exact moment when the strike would cause maximum impact. That is what separates champions from contenders and leaders from followers. An unexpected strategy does not mean reckless action. It is not about gambling with destiny. It is about making the opponent overconfident. When the opponent is convinced they know your next step, that is when you are most dangerous. America assumed it understood India's limits, its intentions, its boundaries. That assumption was the weakness. India flipped the script, showing that the strongest move is the one nobody sees coming. This is how a weightlifter shocks the audience by lifting more than anyone thought possible. This is how a fighter wins by delivering the knockout punch when everyone thought he was exhausted. This is how India stunned the world. What people forget is that surprise itself is a form of power. The human mind is wired to resist the unexpected. When something happens outside the pattern, the brain freezes, even if only for a second. In that second, the balance of power shifts. India's move was not just about politics or economics. It was about psychology. It sent a signal across the globe: underestimate us at your own risk. It told America that assumptions are dangerous. It told the world that India is not going to walk the path others have written for it. It will carve its own road. The impact of such a strategy is not measured only in headlines or reports. The real impact is felt in the silence after the shock. When America paused, when analysts were left speechless, when allies began to rethink their positions, that is the sound of strategy working. You do not need immediate applause, you need the echo of respect, and that echo is louder when it comes from those who never expected it. History teaches us that every great power shift begins with a surprise. Rome expanded because enemies underestimated its discipline. The Allies won wars because they struck where no one thought they could. Athletes become legends because they defy expectations. In the same way, India showed that the future belongs to those who do not play by the old rules. The move itself may look simple on the outside, but its strength comes from the years of preparation behind it. America saw the action. It did not see the countless decisions, the strategies, the quiet resilience that built up to it. This is the core of an unexpected strategy: silence, preparation, patience, and the right moment. Without these, you only make noise. With these, you shake the world. India's move was not random, it was not luck. It was the result of vision combined with discipline. It was the product of understanding that the biggest impact is not in following the crowd, but in shocking the crowd. And when the shock is strong enough, it forces even the most powerful to stop, respect, and reassess. India's rise is not a story of sudden luck or chance. It is the result of years of relentless discipline and a vision that never wavered even when the challenges were overwhelming. Discipline is the foundation of greatness. In bodybuilding, discipline is what makes you wake up when it is still dark, what keeps you lifting the weight when your body says no, and what pushes you beyond the limits of pain. For a nation, discipline is what transforms resources into strength, what builds infrastructure out of chaos, and what turns setbacks into fuel for future victories. India has shown the world that discipline is not about rigid control, but about consistent effort repeated day after day, year after year, until the results cannot be ignored. Vision, on the other hand, is what gives direction to discipline. Without vision, discipline becomes repetition without purpose. India's vision was clear: to stand not as a follower but as a leader on the world stage. This vision was not just about economic growth or military power or technology alone. It was about self-respect and independence. It was about saying to the world, we will not be defined by your expectations, we will define ourselves. That clarity of vision turned discipline into momentum. Every reform, every innovation, every risk taken in silence added fuel to that momentum, until the rise could no longer be denied. The combination of discipline and vision is what makes the impossible possible. Think about an athlete who trains for years for a single championship moment. The training is invisible, the sacrifices are unspoken, but when the moment comes, all of it explodes into victory. India's rise has been the same. For decades, the country has worked through its challenges: poverty, corruption, political instability, and external pressures, never losing sight of the bigger picture. Each obstacle was another weight to lift, another barrier to push against. That relentless grind built resilience, and resilience is the true muscle of a nation. Discipline without vision is routine, and vision without discipline is fantasy. Together, they are unstoppable. That is why the world is watching India now with a mixture of surprise and respect. Many nations had vision but no discipline, so they collapsed under their own ambitions. Others had discipline but no vision, so they worked hard but never advanced. India balanced both, creating a rise that feels inevitable in hindsight but shocking in reality. This is the same principle you see in any great champion. People look back and say it was obvious, but they forget how invisible the grind was before the victory. India's rise is not only about the past, it is also about what it represents for the future. The discipline that built its foundation will keep fueling growth, and the vision will continue to guide that growth in directions others cannot predict. This is why the move shocked America. America assumed that India would follow a predictable pattern, that it would remain satisfied with gradual progress and minor achievements. But discipline trained India to think long-term, and vision trained it to strike boldly. When the moment came, the rise was not gradual, it was a leap that shook global expectations. The essence of this rise is also deeply cultural. Discipline is not foreign to India, it is embedded in its traditions, philosophies, and way of life. Ancient practices of meditation, yoga, and spiritual resilience show a nation that has always understood the power of self-control and endurance. Vision, too, is embedded in the stories of its leaders, thinkers, and reformers. People who dreamed beyond the present moment, beyond their lifetimes, and planted seeds for future generations. The rise we see now is not disconnected from this past. It is the modern expression of a timeless principle. When you combine the discipline of the body with the vision of the mind, you create unstoppable power. On the global stage, this rise is more than a regional shift. It is a rebalancing of power. Nations that once viewed India as a market or a follower must now see it as a competitor and a leader. This change does not happen overnight, and it does not happen without consistency. India's discipline in building its economy, in investing in technology, in strengthening its military, and in engaging diplomatically has created a structure strong enough to sustain shocks. Its vision of independence and leadership has turned that structure into a platform for influence. The combination is what gives India its rise and what forces others to take notice even when they did not expect to. Shock is the most powerful reaction you can create in an opponent. When America was confronted with India's move, it was not just a political surprise, it was a psychological earthquake. For decades, the United States has operated with the belief that it understands the moves of every other nation. It has analysts, think tanks, intelligence, strategies built on the assumption that nothing significant will happen without their foresight. But then comes a moment when reality does not match prediction, when the chessboard is flipped, and that is when shock becomes the weapon. India delivered exactly that, a move that no one on the other side expected, a move that proved foresight can be blinded by arrogance. When you shock your opponent, you do more than win a single moment. You weaken their confidence in their own judgment. For a superpower like America, image and control are everything. The perception that it sees and knows all is the foundation of its influence. The moment it is proven wrong, the world starts to question. If America did not see this coming, what else is it blind to? If America was shocked, can it still be trusted as the ultimate authority in global affairs? This is how one unexpected move can create a ripple effect far beyond the initial action. It is like a fighter in the ring who gets hit by a punch he did not see. The blow hurts, but the real damage is that now he questions his defense. Shock also redefines relationships. Allies who once followed America unquestioningly now start to look at India differently. They think if India can surprise the United States, maybe it can lead in ways we did not consider. Rivals who ignored India now begin to calculate with caution. This change in perception is not bought with money or negotiated with treaties. It is earned through action that nobody saw coming. The unexpected move gave India not just power but presence, and in the global arena, presence is influence. The reason America never saw it coming is because it underestimated the combination of patience and ambition. In the world of power politics, nations often mistake silence for weakness, restraint for hesitation, and patience for lack of ability. America believed it could predict India because it saw India's actions only through old patterns, old narratives, old frameworks. But India was evolving, building, preparing for a moment when it would no longer fit into those categories. That is why the move shocked them. They were watching the past, but India was building the future. Shock is not random, it is engineered. Just as a champion prepares for the perfect moment to unleash a move that stuns the competition, India prepared for this exact outcome. Timing is everything. A move made too early gets ignored, a move made too late gets dismissed. But a move made at the perfect time creates a jolt that forces even the strongest player to stop in their tracks. India chose its moment with precision, ensuring that the impact would not be local but global. The shock was not just in what India did, but in when it did it. The other element of shock is the lesson it teaches. Once America was caught off guard, it had to face the reality that the world is no longer a one-way street. The assumption of always leading, always predicting, always dominating was broken in an instant. This does not just change how America sees India, it changes how America sees itself. That is the deeper power of shock. It destabilizes not only your opponent's view of you, but their view of themselves. The ground they thought was solid suddenly feels uncertain, and uncertainty is weakness. Shock also inspires. For nations around the world that felt overshadowed, ignored, or underestimated, India's move was a demonstration that power can shift. It showed that no matter how large the opponent, no matter how strong the narrative of control, surprise is always possible. This psychological impact is almost as valuable as the direct political impact. People need proof that the impossible can happen, and shock provides that proof. It changes imagination into belief, and belief into momentum. This is why America never saw it coming, and why the reaction was so strong. Shock is the product of discipline, vision, timing, and courage combined. It is the difference between being predictable and being unforgettable. When India delivered this move, it wasn't only about the immediate results. It was about breaking the pattern, rewriting expectations, and forcing the world's most powerful nation to admit that it was surprised. That admission alone is a victory more valuable than any statement or speech. Power does not remain still, it always shifts. History is nothing but a record of power moving from one center to another, from one empire to the next, from one nation's grip to another's rise. For decades, the global arena has been dominated by a few players, with America holding the largest share of influence, directing narratives, controlling outcomes, and expecting others to adjust. But India's move created a crack in that structure, a signal that the power balance is not permanent. When a new player steps forward with boldness, discipline, and strategy, the entire stage has to be rearranged. That is what a power shift looks like, not a gentle transition, but a shock that forces everyone to rethink where they stand. The shift in power begins when perception changes. Influence is not just about weapons or money, it is about how the world sees you. For years, India was seen as a rising nation, a growing market, a potential partner. But after this move, India is no longer just rising, it is here, making decisions that shake even the strongest. That change in perception is the first step in the redistribution of global influence. Other nations now weigh their choices differently. They ask, should we align closer with America, or should we look to India as a counterbalance? Should we underestimate India, or should we respect its ability to play the long game? In the arena of power, perception drives strategy, and India has changed the perception forever. What makes this moment historic is that it reflects the natural cycle of global dominance. Empires rise and fall, powers peak and decline, and the torch is always passed, whether willingly or not. America, like all powers before it, assumed its position was eternal. But the truth is, eternity in global politics is a myth. The Roman Empire thought the same. The British Empire thought the same. Every champion in history believed their reign would last forever, until the moment it didn't. India's move does not mark the end of America's influence, but it does signal that the monopoly is broken. The global arena is no longer one-sided, it is now a competition again. Power shifts are not always visible in the short term. They begin like an undercurrent, small and unnoticed, until suddenly the tide turns. For years, India has been building its economic strength, growing its technology sector, expanding its military, and establishing new diplomatic relationships. These efforts may have looked slow or quiet, but they were the undercurrent. The move that shocked America was the visible wave, but the real shift is in the foundation that India has laid. That foundation ensures that this is not a one-time event. Once a nation has shown it can shock the strongest, it has permanently changed the equation of global power. The most interesting part of a power shift is how it forces everyone else to adapt. America must now reconsider how it engages with India. Other global players like Europe, Russia, and China must adjust their calculations too. Smaller nations that once felt they had only one choice of ally now see another option. This creates a chain reaction of new partnerships, new negotiations, and new opportunities. India's single move has created a domino effect, because when the balance changes at the top, the whole system realigns. This is why the global arena is watching so closely, not just to see what India does next, but to understand how they must reposition themselves in this new balance. Another element of the power shift is psychological. The strongest nations are used to dictating terms, not being surprised. When they are forced to respect someone they once underestimated, it changes their entire approach. Respect is not given freely at the highest level of global politics. It is earned through moments of undeniable strength. India earned that respect in a single decisive action. This changes the tone of every conversation moving forward. From trade to security to global governance, India will not be spoken to as a minor player anymore. This is the true weight of power. When your voice cannot be ignored, the shift is also about symbolism. For billions of people across the world, especially in developing nations, India's move represents a new possibility. It shows that power is not frozen in place, that it can move, that it can be challenged, that it can be rewritten. Symbolism matters because it fuels belief, and belief fuels change. Just as an athlete's victory inspires millions to push their own limits, a nation's bold step inspires others to think beyond the limits they were told to accept. In this sense, India's move was not just a national action, it was a global signal. Every era has a moment that defines its shift in power. For some, it was the collapse of an empire. For others, it was a war or a revolution. For this era, it may well be the moment India shocked America with an unexpected move that changed the global conversation. The arena has been rearranged, the pieces have shifted, and the players who thought they were in control are now forced to look at the board differently. That is the essence of a true power shift. It does not ask for permission, it demands recognition. Confidence is the ultimate muscle. You cannot buy it, you cannot fake it for long, and you cannot borrow it from others. It comes only from consistent effort, discipline, and victories that prove you belong at the top. When a nation like India shows confidence, the world pays attention. For years, India was seen as cautious, hesitant to take bold steps, often waiting for validation from larger powers. But the move that shocked America was not cautious, it was confident. It was a signal that India now trusts its own strength, its own decisions, and its own future. That kind of confidence is more powerful than weapons or wealth because it changes how others perceive you and, more importantly, how you perceive yourself. Confidence in the global arena is like confidence on a stage or in a competition. When you step up with certainty, when your body language shows you are not afraid, when your tone carries conviction, the opponent already feels pressure. India's move carried that same aura. It was not hidden, it was not apologetic, and it was not made with doubt. It was delivered with the calm assurance of a nation that knows it has earned its place. That confidence alone shocked America more than the move itself, because it revealed a new India, an India that no longer asks but asserts, no longer waits but leads. The root of this confidence is preparation. A bodybuilder does not step on stage unsure of his physique. A fighter does not walk into the ring hoping for luck. They prepare for years, they practice relentlessly, and they visualize victory until it feels inevitable. India's confidence comes from the same process. It has spent decades building its economy, advancing in science and technology, strengthening its military, and improving its infrastructure. These achievements are the hidden training sessions that the world ignored. The confidence shown in the move was not arrogance. It was the natural expression of strength built step by step. True confidence is also unshakable under pressure. When the world watches, when critics doubt, when powerful nations raise questions, the insecure nation retreats. But the confident one holds its ground. India did not retreat or explain itself endlessly. It stood firm, letting the action speak. That firmness is what created the shockwave. America, used to seeing hesitation, suddenly faced a nation standing tall without flinching. In global politics, hesitation is weakness, but confidence is dominance. Once you show that you can act with certainty, even superpowers have to recalculate their approach. Confidence is contagious. When a nation projects it, its people feel it, its allies sense it, and even its rivals cannot ignore it. For India, this move sent a message not only to America but to its own citizens. It said, "We believe in ourselves." That belief ignites pride, and pride fuels unity. A confident nation inspires innovation, risk-taking, and ambition among its people. It also inspires trust from other nations. Countries that might have doubted India's role in leadership now see a reliable, bold partner. This ripple effect strengthens India's position globally without needing constant justification. Another dimension of confidence is independence. A nation that constantly seeks approval cannot be confident. Confidence means making choices based on your own vision, even if others disagree. India's move was exactly that: independent, unapologetic, and strategic. America was shocked not only by what India did, but by the fact that it did it without asking, without waiting, without hesitation. That independence is what separates a follower from a leader. In the gym, no one respects the lifter who waits for permission to add more weight. Respect goes to the one who picks it up and proves he can handle it. India picked up the weight of leadership, and the world was forced to notice. Confidence also breaks stereotypes. For too long, India was seen through the lens of its struggles: poverty, population, and politics. But confidence refuses to be defined by limitations. It shifts the focus to strengths, achievements, and vision. When India acted with confidence, it shattered the outdated image the world held. It proved that the country is not bound by the past, but is ready to define its own future. America's shock was a reflection of this broken stereotype. It had underestimated India, and the confidence of the move proved just how wrong that assumption was. The global arena respects strength, not excuses. Nations may sympathize with weakness, but they only follow power. Confidence is the visible face of that power. Without it, even great resources go unnoticed. With it, even small steps feel larger than life. India's confidence transformed its move into a statement, one that echoed far beyond the immediate situation. It forced the most powerful nation to acknowledge that the rules have changed and that the world must now deal with India as a confident, self-assured force, not a hesitant participant. Every great story begins with the underdog, the one counted out, the one underestimated, the one expected to stay in the shadows. For a long time, India was placed in that category on the global stage. It was seen as the nation of potential but not dominance, of progress but not leadership, of dreams but not execution. The world often admired its culture, its resilience, its people, but it did not imagine India as a dominator in global affairs. That perception was convenient for powerful nations. They could engage with India on their terms, without truly considering it a challenger. But then came the moment when the underdog decided to rise, when the years of struggle and preparation were converted into strength, and that strength shocked the very nations that once underestimated it. This is the transformation from underdog to dominator. The power of the underdog lies in being overlooked. When people do not expect much from you, you are free to prepare without interference, free to build without being watched, free to design your strategy quietly. India did exactly that. While others looked at it through the narrow lens of poverty or political challenges, it was investing in technology, advancing its space program, strengthening its military capabilities, and growing its economy into one of the largest in the world. This is the underdog advantage, the ability to surprise because no one believes you are capable of shaking the system. Dominance, however, is not just about action, it is about mindset. A dominator does not ask for permission, does not wait for approval, does not fear resistance. A dominator acts with certainty and forces others to adapt. India's move shocked America because it was a dominator's move, not an underdog's. It was decisive, unapologetic, and powerful. It marked the moment when India stepped out of the shadows of doubt and into the spotlight of leadership. That transition is not symbolic, it is structural. Once you act like a dominator, the world begins to treat you as one. The journey from underdog to dominator requires resilience. It is about enduring setbacks without giving up, facing criticism without breaking, and using every challenge as training for the bigger fight. India's history is filled with struggles: colonialism, wars, economic hardships, political instability, but those very struggles built toughness. Just as a fighter who has been hit 1,000 times learns to take punches and keep moving forward, India learned to endure and adapt. That endurance is what gave it the stamina to wait for the right moment, to strike not with desperation but with strength. Another critical element in this transformation is vision. An underdog without vision remains an underdog forever. India refused to accept the limitations others imposed on it. It envisioned a role beyond being a follower, a role of leadership in global matters. This vision gave purpose to its discipline, direction to its policies, and courage to its actions. Vision is what allowed India to see itself as a dominator long before the world did. And when that vision finally aligned with the right move, the transformation was undeniable. The shock America felt was not just about the move itself, but about the realization that India was no longer playing the role assigned to it. The script had been broken. For decades, the global hierarchy assumed India would contribute but not lead, participate but not dictate. With one bold step, that assumption was destroyed. America had to face the reality that the underdog had not only caught up, but was now capable of rewriting the rules. This is the ultimate power of the underdog turned dominator. It not only wins, but changes the entire game. Dominance also requires confidence, and confidence is earned through victories. India had already been stacking victories quietly, whether in technology with its space missions, in economics with its rapid growth, or in diplomacy with its expanding influence. These victories built the muscle of confidence. When the moment came, India did not hesitate because it already knew it had the strength to stand its ground. A dominator never waits for proof from others. It acts because it has already proven itself internally. The rise from underdog to dominator also inspires millions who have lived under the same shadow of doubt. When people see a nation that was once dismissed rise to a position of strength, they see themselves in that story. It tells them that being underestimated is not a curse. It is a weapon. It reminds them that the greatest victories often come from those who were ignored the longest. India's transformation is not just a national story, but a global lesson. Never write off the underdog, because one day, with enough preparation, that underdog will dominate the very stage it was once excluded from. The world does not respect excuses, it respects strength. Every nation can explain its failures, every leader can justify its weaknesses, and every society can point to history or circumstance as reasons for why things are not possible. But in the global arena, excuses do not create influence, excuses do not command respect, and excuses do not change the balance of power. Strength does. Strength is the only language the world listens to consistently, and it is the only currency that buys authority across borders. When India made its bold move, what it projected was not justification or apology, but strength. That is why the shock was so loud, because it was undeniable. America and the rest of the world were forced to see India through a new lens, not as a nation explaining itself, but as a nation proving itself. Strength comes in many forms, but the most important one is credibility. To act with confidence and be taken seriously, a nation must first build credibility through consistent effort. India did not gain this credibility overnight. It came from decades of growth, investment, sacrifice, and perseverance. From launching satellites into space at a fraction of the cost of other nations, to growing one of the largest economies on Earth, to producing innovations in technology and medicine, India has been stacking up evidence of its strength. Each achievement added another brick to the foundation until the world could no longer deny its capacity. When the moment of action arrived, India was not speaking empty words. It had the track record to back up its strength. Respect also comes from resilience. Every powerful nation has faced adversity, but the ones that endure are the ones that earn lasting recognition. India's resilience is unmatched, forged through centuries of struggle and survival. Colonization tried to break it, wars tried to weaken it, economic crises tried to slow it down, yet it continued to rise. This resilience is the muscle memory of a nation, the ability to absorb hits and still push forward. America was shocked not just by the move India made, but by the resilience behind it, the toughness that allowed India to act decisively while others doubted. That resilience is a form of strength that no excuse could ever replace. Another element of strength that commands respect is independence. A nation that acts only with the approval of others is not seen as strong, it is seen as dependent. India's move was respected because it was independent. It did not come with permission, it did not come with hesitation, it did not come with compromise. It was a statement that India makes its own choices and bears the responsibility for them. That independence is what separates followers from leaders, and in global politics, only leaders are respected. Excuses make you look like you are seeking validation. Independence makes you look like you are giving direction. The world also respects strength because it creates fear, and fear creates caution. When a powerful nation acts, even rivals step carefully, calculating their next move with respect. India's show of strength created that pause. Nations that had dismissed it as a background player now had to recalculate. Rivals began to rethink their strategies, and allies began to reconsider their loyalties. That shift in global psychology was not born out of sympathy for India, it was born out of respect for its strength. The move did not invite pity, it demanded recognition. Strength also has a symbolic value. Billions of people across the world look for proof that limitations can be broken, that weakness can be transformed into power. India's strength sent that message. It said that no matter how long a nation is underestimated, no matter how many challenges it faces, it can still rise to a position where the most powerful are forced to acknowledge it. This symbolism inspires others to believe that excuses are not destiny, that with determination and action, respect can be earned. It turns India's move into more than just a political step. It becomes a motivational story for people everywhere. Another part of strength is consistency. One strong action alone is not enough. It must be followed by repeated demonstrations of capability. India has shown consistency in its growth, in its achievements, and in its ability to adapt. That consistency makes strength believable. America was not just shocked by a single move, it was shocked by the realization that this move was part of a larger pattern, a larger rise that can no longer be dismissed as coincidence. That is the kind of strength that creates lasting respect. It is not temporary, it is sustained. In the end, the global arena does not ask who has the best excuses, who has the most tragic history, or who has the longest list of challenges. It asks who has the strength to act, who has the strength to endure, and who has the strength to lead. India's move answered that question with clarity. It showed that respect is not given for free. It is earned by demonstrating undeniable strength when it matters most. That is the principle the world follows, and the principle India embraced when it stepped forward with confidence and power.